for those that don't know, my name is Nick Craggs. I'm AAT Distance Learning Director at First Intuition. And joining me are two of my colleagues from the amazing multi-award winning distance learning team who have pretty much completed distance learning this year with the PQ Online College of the Year, AAT Distance Learning Provider of the Year, and Tutor of the Year, just dropping that in there. So with me, we have Bonnie. Yeah, if you want to give us a wave, Bonnie. So Bonnie's a tutor at AAT Distance Learning Tutor, and we've also got Alison.
Hello, everybody.
Who's distance learning tutor at First Intuition, is our most long-standing tutor at First Intuition, aren't you?
Yep, sure am.
Cool. And then joining us, we have, in no particular order, we've got Denitza or Dani.
Hello.
Give us a wave. And then we've also got Nick here. Who gives a wave.
Hi there. Hello.
Cool. So, should we start with Dani? Dani, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Denitza, but everyone calls me Dani. I'm currently studying AAT Level 4 with First Intuition textbook self-study. I have managed to pass my budgeting exam just before the lockdown, and I'm now preparing for financial statements and decision and control to take hopefully in September and October. I have finished my Level 3 with distinction last year. I'm very proud of my result. I have 2 universities degrees, but my job has taken me into accounting. That wasn't planned. I love my job. I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to add MAAT to my name.
Oh, lovely. And what about yourself, Nick?
Hi, yeah, thanks for the intro. I didn't know it was 1%, so I'm slightly glowing now. But, so yeah, I currently work for a housing association as an asset accountant. I completed my AAT Level 4 2 years ago. Before I worked for CIMA Housing, I worked as a support worker for people with learning disabilities. So it was my first job in finance, so I decided to work to get the AAT qualification because basically it was a requirement for my job there to be a part qualified accountant. I didn't have that, so I took up studying to get the AAT. Lovely.
And as part of your job, Nick, was it a case that you chose to study AAT, or was it your employer who decided to put you down to AAT?
I had I'd applied to do it with my employer initially, which didn't get very far, but then I changed job, and as in that new role, as it was then a requirement, my employer really strongly encouraged and pushed it, and actually got me into studying the Level 3 qualification. So kind of a bit of both really, but I was always really up for getting an accountancy qualification to sort of progress myself further in the profession really.
Lovely. And what about yourself, Dani? Why did you choose to study AAT?
For me, I have a BA in Japanese studies, followed by a year in university in Tokyo, and then I have an MBA. When I came to England 13 years ago, I was actually looking for a part-time job to fit around my son's school, which was an admin supporting external accountant, but I started to take more and more responsibilities and started to grow very quickly in the job. So it was a logical step to get a distinguished qualification, but also I needed to gain a lot more knowledge to be able to progress in my job. So I did Level 2 at the time, and then I took a long break, busy with 2 kids and work. And I'm really, really glad that I finally decided last year to get back to Level 3 and now Level 4. I mean, it's been great. I work in an industry, so both the management accounting and the financial accounting are very, very useful. I'm getting better at my job. It's been much appreciated by my employer. He's very, very supportive. And yes, it just makes sense to back up my practical skills and also improve my knowledge. And IAT is giving me all of this.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. I'm, as you all know, I'm a massive fan of AAT.
Oh, it is the best decision I have taken, yes.
Good to hear. Alison, have you got any questions for our guests?
No, not particularly. exactly. Apart from congratulations to you both, of course. That's an absolutely fantastic achievement. Just out of interest, really, Dani, what was your favourite subject at level 3?
My favorite subject was the synoptic, but it became my favorite subject only after I saw my result. So if I have to be honest.
So
was,
did you?
Yes, it was the exam I was worried the most about. I mean, I've sat so many exams in my life. This was the one that I was dreading the most. And
Really?
when I saw that I have achieved 100%, I couldn't believe it. I checked several times.
Wow, that's absolutely
I'm
incredible.
very proud of myself, but I would like to thank First Intuition for the amazing textbooks as well. I mean, nothing, in all the exams that I have sat, there was nothing that wasn't covered or did not prepare me for my exam. So I have never really used any other textbook. So I'm not able to say that First Intuition is the best, but First Intuition has prepared me to achieve a distinction in level 3. And I hope I would be able to achieve this with the help of your textbooks in level 4 as well. Otherwise, I really enjoyed, and it took me probably around 10 days to prepare for indirect tax, very straightforward and easy. And I'm enjoying the management accounting modules, all the costing. It's very logical. I don't need to memorize any descriptions or anything. It's really following very logical the steps. So without knowing even the formulas, you can still get to the right answer. So.
Oh, fantastic. What about you, Nick? What was your favourite subject?
I'd say at level 3 also, I really enjoyed the management accounting as well. That was the first one I took, and I got 97% in it, and which I was really pleased by. I was stunned that I got such a good mark. When I was starting at AAT, I was hoping to pass, so I was really that really spurred me on to, set my sights higher. It was a good module because, again, it's full of calculations, kind of, logical kind of things. There isn't really, much kind of, there's no written part, obviously, in that exam. So yeah, I enjoyed it from that aspect. At level 4, I did the audit paper, which I really enjoyed because it gave me an overview of how companies work in a complete sort of way. And having only worked at one company, it's nice to kind of see that in other companies as well. That was actually my lowest mark at level 4. I blame her sort of doing it a bit quickly. So I did the 3-day kind of online course, and I did the exam, about 10 days later or so. So
Wow.
Probably could have let myself a little bit more time there and prepared a bit more. But I'm still really happy with the result, and it didn't.
Yeah, brilliant.
So
excellent. Well done, both of you.
I'm actually quite curious. How did you go about planning your revision? Did you have a set plan that you stuck to, or were you perhaps a little bit more lenient, Nick?
Well, I didn't. I planned it by taking past papers. So the moment I'd booked an exam, I would then start to, the first thing I'd do would be to attempt a paper. As soon as I'd done that, based upon that, I would, mark it and see exactly where did I go wrong, what was my weakest area.
Yeah.
And then I'd just attempt those questions. And I do that, maybe do a past paper once a week. I think it's quite a good sort of rhythm. And then each different past papers will knock up a different sort of area of weakness. And then I'd use the time between the papers just to do questions and to try and address those.
Yeah.
Until I actually, got to the exam. So it wasn't for me a case of, just structuring the course and revising it, because I always found doing questions a bit more useful than that. That's how it actually goes in. If you're actually trying to, put it all out there on a piece of paper and dredge it out of your mind, it actually sticks much better than if you're just reading it and trying to kind of absorb it that way. So,
yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's brilliant. And what about yourself, Dani?
For me, planning is not really the right word. I won't be a good example as to how to plan your exam, but I really hope I would be able to encourage all the working parents that are trying to study as well, to show them that this is possible and distinction is possible under these circumstances, because my studying is usually in the late evening, or shall I say the early hours of the night. If I sleep in an hour is the best I can do. So what I do first is I actually read the textbooks from start to end, attempting the exercises and not really going back to try it again. And then I attempt the mocks at the end of the first intuition textbooks. And then when I have an idea how the exam is built, I then am better prepared to go back and concentrate and know which areas I need to concentrate on, having an idea as to how the questions are structured. So this is my way of studying. When I go through the whole textbook and attempt the mocks in the textbook and on AAT website, then I have an idea how much I can achieve and how much time I would need to book my exam. So this is the point when I book my exam.
Yeah,
after
brilliant.
looking through the whole of the material and no. But it is not planned in time. I mean, with the synoptic is a bit more difficult with the window. So, I mean, whenever I come to it, I just choose the next window and see if I can sneak another exam before it. It's not, I don't have a plan to finish on by this date or take these exams. It's just trying to do my best. Yes.
Okay,
because
brilliant.
my kids come first, my job is second, and then my studying is on the third place. Yes. Thank you.
Without trying to put you on the spot, Nick, if you could pick one tip that helped you succeed, what was it?
I was thinking about this and thinking about loads of different tips, and I read the question you'd sent me again, and I said, oh, it said one tip. Okay, so I won't go on too much about everything I did. I'd say one really quite small tip, which made a big difference for me, is to when I'm actually taking the exam, and the moment I kind of walk into the actual exam hall, I would not start the exam the moment the invigilator kind of clears you, not click go on that exam paper until you're absolutely ready. So I'd take about maybe even 5 minutes kind of just reading over the material and settling myself. I'd lay all my calculator out, the paper out. I would, if I'd just learned some formulas at the very last minute before I went into the exam, I'd go in and write them out on a bit of paper, like just in that little time before. And once I was fully settled and ready, I'd then click go on the exam and be in a much better kind of state of mind to actually get working straight away, rather than kind of being a bit flustered and rushing.
Yeah, I like that actually. What about yourself, Dani? Have you got one golden nugget?
One golden nugget is do not give up. Take your time. Aim for distinction, not just to have a distinction, because benefit fully from the knowledge that AAT is giving you. My distinction is indication that I have mastered the knowledge I need for my job. And when you close the month at work, there is no way that 70% accuracy would be accepted. So try to get the most out of the qualification, the most of the knowledge. It is really, really useful in practice.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's really interesting. I like the point about the composure as well, Nick. I think it's a really good idea to just to like take a deep breath before you begin, and just to lay out some formulas and just to compose yourself. So we sort of discussed lots of things that you would do. So thinking about revising, what do you think it would be one thing you wouldn't do whilst revising?
That's me.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah.
Okay. So I think in the past, particularly when I was at uni, I had a point before a couple of exams where I was just so nervous that I just froze and did nothing. So like in the immediate run up to the exam, I just wouldn't do anything at all. And that was just because I thought, what's the point? It won't go in. I won't even bother. Now, for my exams now, I feel just as nervous, but I actually do. I just fully, study the night before and on the day as well, because if I think the key thing about exams is to be able to actually work under that kind of exam pressure. So if you can mentally actually work while you're that stressed, then you'll actually be fine on the day. And I've found that if I've done a full exam the day before, then my mind might have been blank the day before, but I find that my mind is much more ready on the actual day. So I think definitely don't do nothing. It seems obvious, but
yeah, I know what you mean. But it's easy to panic, isn't it, and not give yourself enough time for revision. What do you think, Dani?
Well, I never revise on the day of the exam. I never take the textbooks with me. I try to distract myself probably when in the waiting room to enter the exam. I would rather look at my phone, some news or anything else that would keep me distracted. But the thing that I never do when revising is I never do flashcards or take notes. I have always been surprised that this is the method of lots of people. I can even see my older son doing this. I have never done this and don't think it would work for me. Even with the written questions, I would write down the calculations, but kind of talk to myself in my head what I would have written down and never actually put it on paper before I entered the exam. So
wow, yeah, quite a different approach there then.
yes,
So
and it's time saving, yes, as well. When you try to study fast and do your best in the time that you have, yes.
Thank you.
It's interesting how everyone's different, really.
Yeah, very.
Yes, everyone is.
I just find, like, I've had a tutor who said his technique was just to work and revise right up until the start of the exam. You know, power out and do hours of revision and then sit the exam immediately. But I'm somewhere in the middle, Denise. So I'm kind of like, I'll do a bit before, but I know that I also want to conserve my energy so that my brain is functioning fully for the exam as well.
Yeah.
What I do is I aim to book the exams for the afternoon and go to work, leave my desk 20 minutes before the exam as the exam center is 10 minutes walk from the office, and then I'm back at work 10 minutes after it's finished. So this is the best way to keep yourself distracted and not worried about it.
That's interesting as well, because some students like to get up early and get to their exam centre for 9 o'clock and they feel more alert in the morning rather than the afternoon. So that's something to take into account, I suppose, when you're booking an exam.
Yeah, no, I guess it works differently for everyone. For me, the major worry is that I'm really, really worried before exam. And as long as I can distract myself with anything else, that really helps me, rather than read and build up to the tension. So I never open a textbook and never take a textbook with me, not to be tempted to do it on the day of the exam.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm keen to know then, Dani, so if you don't particularly like to write notes, what would you say your favourite study resources are?
I've been using only First Intuition textbooks. I'm writing with a pencil, rubbing it off and doing the exercises again. And I put markers on certain pages I need to go back to and highlighters. But I don't really, so the day before the exam, I would go through the markers I have on certain pages and read only through the things I have highlighted.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What about? Yeah.
No other methods, no.
No.
Who knows what works best for them, and we're all different. And as long as it works, it's good. Yes, the end result is the one that matters the most. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what about yourself then, Nick? What would you say your favourite study resources are?
What I find really useful is the exam papers on the AAT website.
Yeah.
And because they're in exactly the same format as what you're going to get on the day, it just really, prepares you really well for actually being in the exam room and, using their software. I think their word processors in the AAT exam aren't that great. So I think you actually have to get used to using them and, knowing how they work, so that, because if you're not, then it's going to really fluster you on the day, like trying to work in that little box. But if you're completely used to it, and you're expecting it, then it just becomes that much easier on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good tip, actually, that I think some people do sometimes forget that they have access to those other resources as well. And like you say, they are very, very close to the exam on the day, so it is brilliant preparation.
You mentioned the day of the exam. well, the day before, because I remember someone I worked with who I never really got on with, she would say, I've done all my preparation. I know everything I need to know. I will do nothing the day before my exam, and she'd go off to the cinema. I was very much the other way, thinking, I wish I'd done more a bit earlier, and like cram to like 10 o'clock at night. What did you do the day before an exam, Dani?
The day before the exam, as I mentioned, because I've been used only as resources using first intuition textbooks and AAT website, I have been going through the highlighted text in my textbooks. I have always thought the green light tests are an excellent resource, which helps you get used to the language AAT is using. So I have noted that language is very close to the exams and really, really helped me a lot. So this is what I do, green light tests, highlight what I've highlighted in my textbooks. And there is always this one thing that I know I don't know to perfection. And it's always at the back of my mind thinking it wouldn't come in the exam. So I'd kind of leave it aside because I'm not enjoying it that much. So this is the last thing I study to perfection the night before. And the truth is, it's never come out in the exam. So I wish I was watching a movie instead. But I mean, no, not the case.
We do have one more guest who's just joined us. We have Phoebe join us. She's completed level 4 and she got a distinction as well. So she's just joining now. I'll get her to introduce herself when she gets her camera and sound on. But Nick, what would be your typical day before an exam routine?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, as I do all the way through, I will do an exam. Probably in the evening after work, 6 o'clock, I'll just, thrash out an exam, so to speak, because I think AAT exams are mostly about 2 hours ish. And I found that, you can often get them done sooner than that. But what I feel is that whilst I never wanted to do it, I think that was always the way that would really help me. So once I'd finished that exam by kind of 8 o'clock, I'd then, sit back and do absolutely nothing, maybe just watch telly, because at that point I feel like, I probably really wouldn't get any more out of doing any more. And I feel like that just makes me feel like I've done everything I can. So, I go to bed with a clear conscience, essentially, like not feeling like, I've, missed anything, or, if I've done that, then I know I've done everything, so I can just sleep easy and, wake up and do the exam the next day.
Excellent. So Nick's talked about the evening before. So what about on the day then, Nick? Do you go down the route of some students wearing a lucky pair of socks or a lucky pen, or what do you do? So do you keep yourself hydrated, and what do you sort of do on the day?
Yeah, I suppose often if it's I'm the person who I go quite early and just wait at the exam centre for a bit, just sit there and just have a glass of water, that sort of thing, and maybe chat to some of the other students, because I've always done the distance learning. I've never meet the students when I'm there, so I'll just go and chat to a few people, try and settle myself, just try and get kind of anything to calm the nerves really. And then
that's a good idea.
Yeah, so nothing too special, a bit of very light revision on that day, just get some of those things that I really, like you were saying, didn't it, so get some of those things that were at the back of my mind that I didn't know, just get them into my head just at the last minute, because hopefully that will just get me a couple of extra marks at some point, something I might have missed. So then went off for the actual exam. I always just try and enjoy it. I always feel quite just curious and intrigued as to what's going to come up in the exam, because I've looked at all these different questions. I just think, like, what's the actual exam going to be like? What are they going to test? So I kind of, in a really strange way, once I've done it, I actually look forward to it once I'm there. It's kind of like the end, isn't it? So know you're finishing really soon, and this is just the last thing you have to do is the actual exam. So I find it quite an interesting thing. I'm always wondering what it's going to be like, and invariably it's always very grueling when you're actually doing it and just sort of slogging through it. But
I suppose a nice feeling when you walk away and hopefully feel relieved And
Yeah.
the areas that came up in the exam were areas that actually spent lots of time on revision. What about you, Dani, for the day? Thanks, Nick.
Yes, for the day, as I said, I don't revise on the day, but I'm really worried. Even after so many exams, I get this fireball in my stomach. So I prefer to distract myself, and I'm really relieved the minute I entered the exam, and I'm really hesitant tempted to click and just have a quick look at on all the exercise, all the tasks that are coming, but I never do it and do them in the right order. But really tempted to see what's been examined, really. But I know every minute matters, and it makes sense to do it in the right order. Yes. Probably with the written tasks in the budgeting, I left them last, but make sure I quickly read what it appears. I think it was task 4, what's in it, before I proceeded to 5 and then went back to it. Because it is the curiosity really as to what would be next when you're doing a certain task. But yes, the huge relief when you walk out of the exam is for the day.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think, has Phoebe gone?
He's having some technical issues. She's just joining again now. Phoebe, if you could just unmute yourself, that would be fantastic.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I'm late. I was under the impression it was 6, and then computer issues, and it's been a bit of a nightmare. But I'm here now, so. No,
sorry about that. I appreciate you coming. If you could just give us a quick introduction of yourself, Phoebe, where you currently work, and how you did in your studies, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm Phoebe, I'm 20 and I work for BAE Systems at the moment as a finance assistant, so it's very like project based, and I started AAT 2 years ago now. I did level 3 and level 4. I kind of did it because obviously I wanted to develop my technical knowledge where I came straight from school, and to just kind of get that professional recognition behind, like, under my belt. And so yeah, like now I'm quite happy working for BAE Systems and looking to go on and do future studies as well. So yeah.
That's really interesting. So I've asked Dani and Nick, but if you had one top tip about studying, what would it be?
I'd say it's easier said than done, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think like you have to know when you're completely ready for an exam. Like I would plan everything out and be like, yeah, I'm going to do the exam on this day. But you've got to like make sure that when that day comes, or like a week before, if if you're not ready, don't put the pressure on yourself to be like, I need to do this exam in 2 weeks. I need to be qualified in a year, or things like that. You need to make sure that you work at a pace that's comfortable for you, and make sure that you're absorbing everything you can. And I think if you rush something and it just doesn't go in properly, and you're just desperate to sit the exam, it's just not going to go to plan. Like you need to make sure you have a good time frame for yourself, and you don't feel pressured to kind of stick to that time frame if things don't work out how you originally planned.
Brilliant, thanks for that.
Interesting. So what was your favourite subject, Phoebe? And did that correlate into your highest result?
Well, my favourite was management accounting budgeting, partly because it's like really linked to what I do in my current role. But I think I just find, because I'm very mathsy, I always liked maths at school, very analytical. So I think that really suited the kind of things I liked more anyway. And it was nearly my highest grade. It was 1% off being my highest grade.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, no, I really enjoyed that one. My highest was actually in tax. So a bit different, but yeah. So no, that was my favourite one.
Was that personal or business tax?
Personal. So
personal
yeah,
tax.
I found that interesting as well, because obviously it's very like good for just your personal life anyway. But no, I did find budgeting a bit more interesting, like I say, because it was a bit more maths based.
Oh, wonderful, thank you.
Brilliant. So we've talked to Nick and Dani briefly about their kind of routine the night before the exam, leading up to the exam. Is there anything that you kind of stick by there, or?
I would normally, on the day of the exam, I would always do AAT Mock 2. And I know some people say like don't cram things in at the end, which I wouldn't encourage that, but literally just get in the right mindset. Like I'd always do my exam in the afternoon, so that in the morning I could kind of just get in the zone almost and prepare in that way. But the night before, I'd just take it really easy, like get an early night, all that kind of thing, have a good breakfast the next day, like all the things you kind of read on the internet to do before an exam. But I wouldn't do any kind of revision the night before or anything like that. I'd just do the mock in the morning, because that just helped me get in the zone. I know some people might like to read through notes and things, but no, that was what I found worked for me.
Brilliant. So did you normally do your exams in the afternoon then?
Yeah, I always did every single one in the afternoon, just because I found it was easy. Like, then I wouldn't have to stress so much about things like traffic. I know it's small things, but like I could just have a nice lie in, take it easy in the morning. And that was just what worked for me personally. So
brilliant.
Yeah, for me, I think the afternoon is like, I just know I'll have my afternoon slump, my after lunch slump in the afternoon. So again, it's interesting you say personal choice, Phoebe, because I had all my level 3 ones in the evening, and then just because it was at a college, and then my level 4 ones in the morning. So yeah, I think it's good to go with your personal choice.
Yeah, no, definitely. Whatever works best for you.
Speaking of personal choice, I was asked this question actually today, and I thought it was quite a good question to ask you three while you're here. As you ask me, what do I suggest? Do I suggest you start from task 1 and work through to task whatever, or do you prioritise your difficult tasks first, or you do prioritise the easy ones first and get some marks in the bag? What did you do, Nick?
Sorry, it's been a couple of years since I did the AAT. The tasks, this task one, I've actually forgotten what the format of the exam was. But I know, like, towards the end, there's like a couple of written questions, which are going to be the longer ones, and then there's the multiple choice ones. So I would generally work just through the paper in order, but I would, I think you were saying, didn't it, a bit about checking to see what the tasks were at the start of the paper. So I would go and have a little peek at the tasks, maybe make like some very brief outline notes about how I might approach the tasks, and then just put them away and then just work through the multiple choice and, you know, calculation based answers, so that, yeah, by the time I got to the task, you know, it settled in a bit. So the last thing I would want is for in the last, you know, half an hour of the exam, having, you know, use a lot of my mental and focus kind of energy to then have to completely start fresh on a big task question that I wasn't sure about. So by looking at it a bit, that kind of, you know, got it into my head. So by the time I actually came around to it, ideas would kind of, you know, be more likely to come out and make their way onto the paper, so to speak.
What about yourself, Dani? I know when you got 100% in advanced synoptic and you haven't got as much flexibility to go from ethics to spreadsheets and back to ethics, but typically in your exams, would you just start from the beginning and work to the end, or would you look?
For level 3, I was going in the order the tasks were coming. I've only started budgeting in level 4, and as I said, I just had a look at the first task and skipped it written and then left them for the end. But my tip, what I do in my exams is I don't go and check back things at the end, because I think it's time saving. When you do a task, then go and check it while all the information is still in your head, because I think if you leave the checking for the end, you kind of have to reread all the information and get back into it, which would require more time. So actually do a task, go back, check it, then move to the next task, and then check it, and then I don't go back and check again. And I don't think there is time for that in level 4.
Yeah. I mean,
impossible, yes.
Phoebe, what did you do at level 4?
I left all the written tasks till the end. I would do all the multiple choice ones first, and then, because I think as a time management skill as well, it helped, because I tried to do time management in the tasks as well as the mocks, because I know with level 4 time is a big aspect. So I would do all the multiple choice ones, see how much time I had left, and say if I knew there were 3 written questions, I would then divide that time by 3 and then try and do the written questions to that time, and just then like check it, as Dani said, I would check it as I go, because I found that easier, like, because you really have to kind of put yourself in that situation with the written questions, especially do it all, then spell check it all, and then I might check it at the end if I have time. But if you know when you've done the task that you've checked it thoroughly at the time, then you don't have to spend so long at the end, like proofreading and spelling, all things like that. So yeah, I would do the multiple choice ones and then do the written tasks last.
Speaking of written questions, students don't like them, let's be honest. How did you prepare for the written stuff at level 4, Phoebe?
I mean, it was very much like I looked at the tips on the study resources about written questions. I think there was some good on the AAT website as well, just about like general paragraphing and things like that, how to like point, evidence, explanation, just general like writing skills before I did all the written questions, because I found that helped to structure it a bit. And then what I do is, as I approach the written question, I'd write like brief notes as I went through, just like bullet points as to like things I knew I wanted to cover. And I try and make sure I had enough bullet points for marks. So I knew that like I was trying to get in the examiner's mindset a bit and be like, right, so that point should gain me a mark, and then this one, and then explain it. So I like almost spend 5 minutes planning what I was going to write, and then I would try and put it into like proper paragraphs and things like that. So that's my approach. I would also like, when I was at home, I was able to like highlight things and just like make, you know, annotations and all that around it to help. That was the way I tried to do things.
Brilliant. And what about yourself, Nick?
Yeah, much like Phoebe, it was a case of just looking at how many, laying out those individual points, you know, planning to get, you know, that point's going to get 1 mark, that next point is, you know, it's clearly spaced off, that's going to get another mark. Initially I used to, when I wasn't used to the written questions, I used to really dread them. But later I kind of learned that, you know, they're actually, they can be relatively easy to pick up more marks, because you can sort of get to the end of, you know, you've thought of everything you've got to say for a written question, feel like your answer's a bit short perhaps, and then you can suddenly have another point come into your head, and it might take, you know, 20 seconds just to write down that point in, like, you know, hopefully a clear way, and then you might have earned another mark. So, you know, with the multiple choice questions, you can only, you know, you might have to like work out a whole answer and just get 1 mark, but the written questions, you can just sort of, you know, the more you put down, the more marks you're likely to get. So it's more kind of up to you, really. But I think in a way, they were always the ones that I think I would tend to spend a disproportionate amount of time on the written questions. So I think that's a part of my exam technique that wasn't as great, because I'm just not as good at, I think it just takes me a bit longer to plan it all out and kind of get that structure down. I'll look at it for quite a long time, and I've done quite a lot of work on the question before I actually think of a good structure in my mind. So yeah, so I'm maybe not the best at it, but sort of good enough to pick up the marks to, you know, done well overall. So.
And as someone who is currently having fun with written questions, Dani, what's your top tips for written questions?
Written question is don't get carried away with the first written one, because I have experienced this with my budgeting exam, and there was so much I wanted to say in the second one, but I only have 5 or 6 minutes left for the second one, because I wrote like a whole novel with the first one. I had plenty of time planning to split the rest of the time between the 2 questions, and I wrote so much about the first one that I ended up really with 6 minutes for the second one. So I'm glad I managed to throw in some what I thought was the most important, and hopefully got some points for this as well. My result in budgeting is still very good, but I know I could have done a lot better if I was managing my time. So it is very important we have these tips in the textbooks to see how much points are given for the questions and manage your content accordingly, and not get carried away, to put a lot more in that it's needed, and then that would take from your time for the rest of the questions.
Brilliant. Phoebe, you said you did level 3 and 4 in 2 years. Did you? Did you when you did an exam, did you take a break? Did you have a treat after the exam, or you just plow straight into the next unit? I think Phoebe's on mute. I'll give Phoebe a minute just to sort out mute. Nick, would you take a break after each exam, or would you just dive into the next one? Would you treat yourself to a night out or a meal?
I think with my level 4, I think I actually did it way too quickly. I did get it done in about 8 or 9 months, and I was just I did such a pace at it that I was planning to go straight on and do the ACCA right after, but I ended up doing a 2-year break after it. because I just kind of like the relief of no longer studying was so much that I just kind of sort of got out. So probably, you know, I wouldn't actually recommend that approach, because, you know, it's not it's best to be in it for the long haul, rather than, you know, just rushing through it. And I think it would have, if I'd done it in, you know, 12 or 14 months, that would have been fine too, and I probably would have just carried on. So yeah, probably best not to necessarily do it like I did it in terms of the timing. But I definitely got into the study mode on the other hand. So, you know, got into the routine of it by doing it that quickly. So there are pluses and minuses, but yeah.
I mean, everyone's different. You know, some people take a lot longer, some people take, you know, short period of time. And all we want from training provider is people to sit the exams when they are ready, pass it and get first time passes. That's what everyone wants. In terms of everyone being different, when you studied, did you have great big long marathon sessions on a Sunday, or are you a very, you know, little and often kind of person, Dani?
I only able after work, and obviously when everyone is in bed, I try to do an hour and a half during the week. There are days when I just can't get to it, but I try to do a bit more on Friday evening, because no work on the next day, and Saturday evening, and obviously whenever I can sneak in an extra hour on the weekend, I do it. Thinking about it, the longest period of study that I've had until now without being interrupted was actually on the flight back from holiday. My son fell asleep immediately after takeoff, so I studied 3 straight hours and did something that I would have achieved probably in a week at home. So it's really different for everyone. I mean, for me, getting uninterrupted long periods of study, it's kind of impossible.
Yeah, it is different. I've never been a fan of the great big long sessions on a Sunday. I know I often question, if you do 8 hours, how productive are those last 2 hours? I would prefer short and often, preferably on a morning as well. But I know, Dani, you do it really
I'm an evening person. No, I stay too late, and then it's impossible to do anything in the morning. It's impossible to fit anything in the morning, but I prefer to be in peace and silence when everyone is in bed. Yes, it works best for me.
Brilliant. If anyone else has got any questions, feel free to jump on the chat box. Don't worry, you'd have to wait for everyone else. I don't know if any of you were lucky enough to get the lucky green AAT socks, but did any of you have any sort of superstitions that you used to do before your exams? Nick or Dani? Or?
No, not really, apart from just, I suppose the only thing, as I said earlier, was, yeah, nothing quite like that, but just really neatly laying out my calculator and my sharpened pencils and, you know, my pens on the side, and getting it all straight on my desk before I leapt in. But yeah, nothing like, I'm not too superstitious in that way, so not really, no.
I don't have any lucky items as well. I've never had AAT green socks. Maybe I would put them next time only if I get them. But since I got my mug, I've been always studying with it, so thank you very much for it. Yes, it kind of sets me in a better mood to study, usually decaffeinated coffee, because that happens around midnight. It's very nice to have it. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not a superstitious person, but when I did my chartered exams, I used to drive over to Leeds, which meant I had to get up two hours before the exam started. So at that point, I was always hungry. I decided that chocolate was the thing to have, and because what with sugar and energy, it keeps you going. And my first exam, I went, and I think it was 2 for £1 on Snickers at this service station. So I bought these Snickers and I passed that exam. So every exam after that, I had to have Snickers. I don't know if it worked or not, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, talking about superstitions, actually, when during the lockdown, yes, obviously I was planning to be way ahead of my studies now, but everything was put on hold. I found some exam centers which were open earlier than First Intuition, and I remember calling your reading office and just saying, when are you opening? Because I'm not going to book any other exam, because I've been sitting all of my exams here, and I can't imagine entering any other center. I've done pretty well here, so don't want to risk this happening.
Yeah, I mean, actually, specific to you, Dani, in lockdown, what have you done? Because we've sort of found the students have done loads and loads of stuff while they had opportunity, and then, you know, one person sat 4 level 4 exams in 3 days, and then there's others that just said, look, I'm just far too busy. Staff are on furlough. I've got loads to do. What did you do specifically? You know, studying in lockdown.
So studying in lockdown for me was the same way. I've been working throughout lockdown from home with the 2 boys at home as well. So studying routine was the same way, evenings, but I could stay till later because obviously I didn't have to commute to work the next morning, no school run, so I could allow myself to catch up with some sleep. And during lockdown, I have actually started and did the decision on control. I was ready probably to sit the exam in June, and it was impossible. At this time, I knew centers would open at the end of June, but it was very unlikely that I would get a place, as there were lots of students whose exams were cancelled and they were a priority. So what I did is I started to study financial statements. I was hoping that I would be ready to sit both exams at a time, but financial statements have really taken me by surprise. They're taking longer than expected, and a lot more difficult, I think, than what I have expected. So I have decided to concentrate on financial statements now, sit them first in the beginning of September. And I have also booked my decision on control in October, but it will be a matter of just, because I studied it once in May and June, I hope that I would be able to do that within a month and sit my exam.
Is that what you normally do then, Dani? Do you book your exams in the future and then work towards that exam date?
No, never. I usually read the textbook, as I said, from start to end. I'll go through the textbooks, attempt a mock, and then seeing what I can do at this point of time. I know how much revision I would need and how difficult the exam is. So then I book it when I'm familiar with the whole of the material, knowing what my knowledge is when I've been once through all of the textbooks and the mock exams. But it's a bit different now, but I have still managed to go through decision and control in May and June. So I'm confident that I'll be able to prepare again within a month. But I'm not confident to sit the 2 exams in one day or 2 following days. And I'm still not 100% ready for financial statements. So I had to book it really to be able to secure a date under the circumstances.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've actually booked an exam without going through the whole of the material.
What about you, Nick? Did you book yours in advance?
It was the same as Dani, really. I'd just wait until I knew, you know, how ready I was going to be, gauge it, and then book it from that point. So
yeah.
I just found that a bit easier. Again, it's sort of, you know, it's a way of, you know, knowing what you can do and when you're ready. I think is the best way for me to do it. You know, of course, if you've got, you know, a schedule and life events coming up that, you know, you need to have it done by a certain time, that's different. Now currently doing the ACCA, and it's the fact that you have to book an exam on that there's one date, you know, each quarter to do the exam. That's a real thing to get used to. So the fact you can just book an AAT exam, you know, pretty much whenever you want to do it is, you know, absolutely amazing. So that was a real luxury to do, which I really appreciated. Which I definitely have to get out of that mindset now, unfortunately.
Yeah, because there's certain dates, aren't there? Certain windows.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Do you think through your studies, you know, what's the most important thing other than the technical knowledge, you know, looking at more kind of soft skills, what's the most important thing you think you've learned from it?
Well, yeah, I think written questions have been really useful in my job. Just being able to do a written question, it's kind of setting out an answer in the way you're supposed to do it in a written question, where you make kind of one point per paragraph, or at most 2 points a paragraph.
Yeah.
Really, it's really helpful in setting out an email to a colleague, because you're learning how to set things out in a really clear way. And it's kind of like in the back of my mind when I'm sending something to a colleague, I'm thinking, you know, are they going to clearly understand this? So it's a bit like, is the marker going to give me a mark for this? Is my colleague going to really get what I'm trying to say here? Is it the right length? And I think that has been very useful as a soft skill. Yeah. So
yeah, that's
interesting.
brilliant. Yeah, definitely. It's good to hear that you have been able to take those skills forward into your work as well, which is really good to hear. What about you, Dani? Do you feel like you've learned anything?
I have learned a lot, and it's made a huge difference to my job. As I mentioned, I already work in accounting and have been working for quite a while, but it's been quite a lot of new knowledge, a lot more confidence at work, ready to take new tasks. And I would like to mention Excel, because I know everyone is trying to avoid this. Accounting without Excel, there is just no way. I'm sorry to say that. So please do it for yourself, gain this knowledge. Because even if you don't work in accounting, it would be very useful in any job. And for accounting, it is a time savings tool, reporting tool. It just, nobody can be in accounting without Excel. Without Excel, my skills in Excel have been improved tremendously, because I've been trying to avoid to give it the right time. And when the exam came, I kind of finally gave it the necessary amount of time, and I'm really, really happy. It's helping me a lot in my daily job. It is different when you build your own pivot table and can get the information that you need rather than use someone else's as well.
Yeah.
So it makes a huge difference. I mean, with the current software packages, you can export lots of data from the accounting system. And if you look for a mistake, for example, it's so much easier, even if you use filters or pivot tables, to narrow down the information, and it will kind of lead you to the thing that is wrong. It would be saving you so much time. And of course, everyone around you at work would be impressed by this. It would be much appreciated, yes, by the management and your colleagues. So it's definitely something that everyone should do, for not only for the sake of passing the synoptic exam, for themselves. It is very useful for any job.
Yeah, that's a
Couldn't
really
agree
good
more.
point.
Yeah.
Phoebe, I've got a question specifically for you. How did you plan out your revision? You know, once you've gone through the course notes and you start working on exam standard questions, did you book an exam and work back from it, or did you just work through till you felt you were ready and then book the exam? Is that you, Phoebe?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry everyone, I was having some microphone and speaker issues. But yeah, no, what I do is I'd plan roughly when I want to sit the exam. So I give myself kind of a 3-day window, because I knew that, you know, once life gets in the way, sometimes like revision doesn't always go to plan. So I kind of say, right, I want to sit my exam this date, like around these dates. And then I would work through all the task bank, and I would kind of set myself, say if like the exam was 2 weeks away, I would kind of plan out like on a daily basis what I was roughly going to do. So I knew, and then I would say if I couldn't do everything I planned to one day, I'd make sure I caught up the next day and that kind of thing. And then I would plan when I was going to do the mocks and things like that. So I would very much do it on a basis of, this is when I want to do the exam, let's work towards that. And then kind of a few days, well, a week before I'd book the exam, within that kind of 3-day window that I'd set myself, depending on where I kind of, how confident I felt with it and things like that, whether I thought I could do with an extra day or something like that. And I'd actually plan the exam day right at the beginning before I'd even looked at the course notes. That's just how I like to work, to kind of deadlines. So I would say, right, in a month and a half, that's when I want to do the exam. So I've got to do chapters 1 to 3 in this first week, 4 to 6 in the next week. I've got to do the task bank this week, and that's just how I would work it, and then see how I go after that.
I've got a question, which I'm not going to give my opinion on it, but I'll start with Nick. Nick, did you use the green light tests when you studied?
Yes, I did.
What did you think to them?
I think, yeah, they were, I'd forgotten about them until you said about them, Danitza, earlier. I found them useful. So I like the fact that you could keep doing them and you get a different set of questions. Maybe when I did it, there weren't as many questions, so you'd find you get the same questions after a while, and then you get used to them. But yeah, I just thought an extra resource to use. I didn't see it as my main kind of study, but I did see it as, you know, a useful extra thing to do, I'd say. You know, my main thing would be the actual practice exams.
Yeah. Well, yourself, Dani, do you use the green light test?
Yes, I do, and I find them very useful to get used to the language. Is, you know, we all know that they try to trick us sometimes with some of the questions, because it's not a matter of not knowing the answer, it's a matter of understanding what you're asked to do. So yes, they're very useful, and especially for advanced synoptic, for the first part of the exam, I can say that helped me tremendously, and just whizzed through the first part very quickly. And I found that the style of the questions was, some of them were very close to the green light test. So whenever I've been asked for advice about advanced synoptic, I always make sure for ethics, make sure you do the green light tests. They're very, very helpful, and have been for me.
And what about yourself, Phoebe?
I always found them a bit disheartening at times. Like, I thought some of them were, like, in a weird way harder than the mocks that I did. Like, some of the questions, I don't know, I personally didn't find them as useful. That was just me. Like, I know, like, some people found them really helpful and stuff, but I did still do some of them, but I'll be honest, I didn't do them for every single exam, because I just didn't find them as useful as, like, doing the actual practice tests and, like, the task bank, because I was more like trying to get myself ready for the format of the exam, and I think the tasks and the mocks help that, and you kind of know what to expect a bit more, like, oh, this is what question 1's going to be like, this is what question 2, whereas green light tests were obviously a bit different. So I personally didn't find them as useful, but that's just me.
That's fine. I mean, it shows everyone's different, because I'm not a fan of them. But you know, if like, they are good question practice, but like Phoebe says, she says they can be quite disheartening because they look for a different level of competency than the exams. But like, if they work for you, Dani, if they work for you, Nick, that's fine. I mean, I made a few notes here about, you know, what Nick and Dani, everyone says, and I think a lot of it comes out of there. It was mock exams, and especially like Nick's routine of doing a mock exam every week. I think Bonnie and Alison agree with me that, you know, mock exams are crucial. Yeah. Was anybody last minute questions before we go? So I think we're right on the money in terms of time. But if not, I'd like to say thank you to Dani, Nick and Phoebe for joining us. It is greatly appreciated. I really, really do. And hopefully, because we're going to email us out, I think there's about 40 or 50 people registered who, hopefully they will get the recording, and they will sort of use this to hopefully get that distinction, that 100% in advanced synoptic, you know, all those crazy high marks that you three have got. And hopefully we'll, you know, keep Team FI getting the good results that it gets. So I'd just like to say thank you for everyone attending, especially thank to our guests, Dani, Nick and Phoebe for attending. I personally found that really useful. And I know Bonnie and Alison.
Yeah, definitely.
As well. Cool. Well, I won't keep any longer, especially when I'm about to do a level 2 session in half an hour. But don't forget, we've still got one day left of our AAT festival. So tomorrow we've got Ben, 8 till 9, talking about qualifications after AAT. And then tomorrow lunchtime, we have Rebecca Fay, who's captain of Cambridge United Football Club, past winner of AAT Apprentice of the Year. And I'm not going to do a drum roll because I did that once on a Facebook and it just killed my microphone. We have Leah Williamson, who is Arsenal and England footballer extraordinaire, joining us to talk about how she balances being a complete and utter legend on the Arsenal football pitch and studying AAT, followed by a good friend of mine, James Duggan, who used to be a chef, used to cook for the Queen, and probably one seems how he changed his career. And then 5:30 Friday night, I don't know why I got stuck with this, me, Ben and Gareth talking about our careers and how we ended up working at First Intuition. So they're all there, free for everyone to register. But once again, have a good evening, and thank you to Dani, Nick and Phoebe.
Thank you too. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.